Welcome. It's 9:30 on a Wednesday night here on the East Coast. You know it's time for the Dynasty Hour. I am Andrew LeDuc, a.k.a. Mr. Mallard, joined as always Justin Herrera, Mr. Fantasy Jesus himself, some Tex-Mex 93. Welcome in, Justin. We will be joined by Chuck in a little bit, but Justin, how are you this evening?
Oh, man, I'm fantastic. I don't know about you. I know this is my favorite place to be on a Wednesday night, and I wouldn't have it any other way than to be wrapping up with some Dynasty hours. Always some great conversations, and boy, man, I know it's playoff prep too, but I feel like this is the consolidated, extended edition of that one movie that you really freaking love and you gotta see every single year at Christmas, because you know that we're gonna bring you the good stuff. We're gonna give you that good postseason advice, because shit, man, left and right we are losing players, and you gotta know who to start and who not to start.
Yeah, you nailed it, because I know we did. Well, no, because you nailed it, because I know we did playoff prep last week too, but it's almost like we had to start from square one this week with the amount of injuries and screw ups that happened this past week. So why not just reline it up and shoot again? Let's get into some of that, because look, as far as we call this section the news and nonsense section, it felt like complete nonsense for me, because I don't know about you, but in my home league, it's been an absolute abysmal, disgusting showing for me this year, and I'm kind of playing for pride to not finish last place in that league this year, which is terrible. But I had a chance to win Monday night, and I just needed Trevor Lawrence and Christian Kirk to score a combined like 34 points, and that's just the way the cookie crumbles as my season is gone. Christian Kirk on the very first play, I had that high of, they went to him right away. Boom, nice little 30-yard catch or whatever it was, 20-something yards. And then I see him rolling around. I said, well, okay, Trevor Lawrence can still score like 30, right? We can make this happen. And he was about there. And then he wasn't. So Trevor Lawrence injury looks quite bad. Conflicting reports saying that it's just a high ankle sprain, but that they're waiting to see more reevaluate as the week goes on. I believe someone even said that there's a chance he might play this week, which I think is highly, highly unlikely. That injury looked nasty. I don't know if you saw it live, but that thing, the way he got stepped on and twisted, but it looked like he could have tore something all the way up in his calf with the amount of twisting he did. Did that Monday night's game affect you at all personally in any of these between Lawrence and Kirk? I mean, we'll talk about Kirk later, so let's just talk about Lawrence now. Did the Lawrence injury, did you feel that?
Yeah, so Monday affected me more than it's ever affected me in any bowling leagues in my life. Because I was there sitting there watching while I'm just playing this simple game that we call bowling for a little bit of money. And I was over there going, my season is kind of getting tested once again. Because, my two guys this year, when I really spread it out and I really analyzed teams, were Trevor Lawrence and Anthony Richardson. Yep. So first off, I started off real nice, and after a while, I was like, oh no, what the fuck? And now it's I'm back in that same position, man. You're absolutely right. That injury looks so horrendous that the Bengals look like they were feeling sorry for him. Like I remember
Yeah.
the Bengals defender. I think it was Hendrickson. Yeah, 91.
Mm-hmm.
He freaking
Yeah.
immediately went down to his knee because you could tell this guy knew he wasn't getting up. And now reports come out that Trevor Lawrence had the opportunity to get the cart and decided to walk it off. I always think of it as that's a luxury that you have. You don't have to. They can take you back there, but at the same time, big props to him. If you can walk off on your own and show your team that you're strong enough to do that, for me, that also gives me a confidence that I'm like, okay, maybe there's a shot. I doubt he comes back this week.
No,
It just
I highly
doesn't
doubt it.
seem right. Yeah, they're in the mix. They're really, if they got one game to give in this AFC South race to give to the Texans. If they lose, then they're still the leader. If they win out, I think they're just going to do that. Let CJ go beat hard on the field, and then come back the next week with Trevor Lawrence a little bit more healthy.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I mean, I guess
I
the good.
just remember. I remember that guy's fucking name, and it was like they always go Beathard, CJ Beathard.
Yes.
I'm just like, dude, just say the name. Just say
it. Just someone just let it slip. Yeah, no, that was Trevor Lawrence it was great to see him walk off, but I always look at the player's reaction because they always know how bad the injury is, and when he went to stand up and he couldn't, and he started slamming his helmet on the ground, and it almost looked like he started to just straight up like cry out of frustration because I saw like his head shaking and whatnot, and kind of that manner. Like the second I saw that, I was like, this is not good. I personally feel like it's going to be a multi-week injury, so we'll see. Really, the news is we're still waiting on the news on how useful he'll be for your playoff run. So stay tuned for more on Trevor Lawrence. But from a disappointing injury to just a disappointing season being wrapped up in a nice little bow of an injury here with Rhamondre Stevenson. He was just starting to kind of find it because the Patriots had finally decided and realized we can't throw the ball. Let's just run it 50 times. And he was looking good. He was running hard. And this is another one of those freak kind of injuries where his ankle just got rolled up on in a pile and it caused him to drop the ball. I can't remember. I don't think the fumble count either. It doesn't matter, but still he felt the pain so much it caused him to drop the ball the way he got rolled up on in that pile. So the Stevenson injury, I'm pretty sure he's going to be done as far as fantasy usefulness. Maybe he pokes his head back in the last 2 weeks or so, but you can count Stevenson done on your team. How do you? I don't want to spend too much time here because we're going to get into Elliott later, actually. But I know someone you do like Tank Dell, also hurt this week, of course, on the IR. Where were you? Because you're pretty exposed to Tank Dell, if I remember correctly, aren't you?
Oh, hyper exposed to him.
That's what I thought.
I had him everywhere. It hurts my heart because Tank Dell was my guy. I was going to bat for Tank Dell. I wanted him to be a 49er because this guy, he just had everything that you wanted for the receiver of that system. And go figure, he ends up landing in that system just somewhere else. But that hit home. The Tank Dell injury, and they say it everywhere, but it's kind of true. Why do you have a guy that's 150 pounds soaking wet making that kind of a block on the inside? That just it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it reminds me of Gronk getting hurt on blocking on a field goal, like just some of those silly plays that it's not needed to put him in that situation. Like, sure, you can't avoid injury for some of these players because they're going to be involved in plays. It just happens, but you got to reduce the exposure to some moments. And the good thing for Houston is that Nico Collins had himself a day approaching 200 yards, and Noah Brown is still looking quite useful in that offense. So as long as the two of them can keep it going and Singletary's catching passes out of the backfield, I really don't think CJ Stroud is going to take too much of a step back when it comes to his playoff his playoff performance coming forward.
Yeah, and that's a strong indication of how good CJ Stroud's going to be going forward, that he can just adapt to the next player, because guys like Noah Brown, Brevin Jordan had himself a
Mm-hmm.
day. I haven't heard Brevin Jordan since when he was in Florida. Like,
Yeah.
he had himself a day, and I think it's more of a testament to CJ Stroud, just a freaking talent for the future.
No, totally agree. And remember, Noah Brown is, a lot of guys do consider Noah Brown just a guy. So, as long as it's working out there, he's going to be more than just a guy. He's definitely a rosterable, uh, flex streamer, especially coming up in the fantasy playoffs here. So, I'm not being too down on that Houston offense right now. I'm quite the opposite actually. So, yeah, Tank Dell going down hurts, of course, right as he changes his name officially with the NFL to Tank. I don't know, a little coincidental, I guess. But Christian Kirk, we already talked about him also going down with that core injury. That was a weird one because the way he caught the ball and then rolled around, I was like, okay, first I thought he just got the wind knocked out of him because the way he came down, I said, okay, that makes sense. And then I saw like the quick camera angle of him right after, and he's holding his groin. So I'm like, okay, he
Right.
must have landed on the ball and just got hit in the nuts or something because nothing looked crazy from it. And then I saw the replay again. I'm like, yeah, still nothing. I don't. What the hell did he hurt? It's obviously his groin area, but apparently it's a core injury, which I hear core, I think abs, whatever. But apparently that travels down into your groin as well. I don't know. I'm no medical expert. But that one hurts. The Christian Kirk one, it hurts. Yes, for me personally, as I explained earlier. But I'm assuming you see Ridley taking a big step forward here. That's the obvious one. But what did you feel about Parker Washington? Because the kid looks explosive. Do you think that was just because no one really knew anything about him, or do you think that's something he can sustain?
Yeah, I mean, he looked great. I wouldn't be so quick on Calvin Ridley take. I said it yesterday on the TSS show. Like, he has been such a disappointment this year that when you think he's gonna pop, he
Hmm.
just absolutely curls up in a ball and does absolutely nothing. So that's just one of those things. I'm just like, man, I don't want any more exposure to Calvin Ridley. He's just a volatile
Hmm.
product. But yeah, I like Parker Washington. I've been trying to get waivers in on him all week long. If he's
Yep.
left on free agency, I'm trying to grab a piece of that because it's all about who you're replacing, right? And you're replacing a guy who gets a lot of fucking targets.
Hmm.
And you got to love that right off the bat, right? Because maybe not this week because it'll be CJ, but for the long term, Trevor Lawrence, that's a really nice play.
Yeah.
Anybody who has Evan Ingram in the long haul, you've got to love how your playoffs are going to shape up because
Yeah.
this guy is already getting targets. Now you take out the only real competition to his targets. Both these guys were getting like 9 to 12 targets a game. So
Hmm.
now you take that out, you can almost guarantee he's getting 12 or he's getting double digit targets each game. Like I said, with the Calvin Ridley, I might just be overlooking it, but his whole season has just been an absolute roller coaster that I want no part of.
Nope, I don't blame you. The Parker Washington and Evan Ingram takes feel more safe as long as Beathard's the quarterback in there for Lawrence if he misses time. One because the age old Beathard and Washington have had more time thrown with each other because of his place on the depth chart and all that jazz, and it showed. There was a chemistry and they just had the timing down and it worked. And then look, Evan Ingram. He was moving. I haven't seen Evan Ingram move as well as he did Monday night in a while. So the fact that he finally got in the end zone, all upticks for that. So that makes perfect sense. Christian Watson, another disappointing season of someone who was hyped up this year, also goes down hurt. This looks like he re-injured a hamstring that had bothered him in camp. They caused him to miss the start of the season. So quite personally, I feel like Watson's probably also going to be pretty useless to us going forward as we talk playoffs here. I'm also starting to take some serious question into his long-term stock in this offense. And we're going to get to talking some more about that later on. But just as a little note there, this Green Bay offense is kind of wide open. And it's really scary to have pieces of it right now to really just being unsure of where they're going to fall. Are you overly exposed to this offense at all in any one area? Or is this something you've just stayed away
Uh,
from?
yeah, surprisingly, I've been one of the highest people on Jordan Love. And for a second, I was starting to think, oh, maybe this guy is totally a pumpkin from because first couple games he was a top 12 quarterback, like no doubt he was in that ranking. And then he kind of, turned. He kind of had that almost like that rookie bump where
Yep.
they hit a wall after you've seen enough tape on him, and defenses start to figure out. But then as the weeks have gone on, he's started to show progress, and now he's starting to show, that he is a little bit more than just that guy that was sitting back 5 years, that he's starting to become his own guy. I really like the talent that he has. I like the ability to use arm angles. He's kind of got a little bit of Aaron Rodgers with a little touch of Patrick Mahomes to him. Obviously, he's neither one of those talents right now. I'm just saying, some of the little things that he does kind of reminds me of both of those guys. But as far as the receivers go, I mean, I think the most exposure I have is to actually Romeo Doubs, which
makes sense.
That's also one that's kind of been a little bit bad. But Jaden Reed and Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, it just feels like two of them are going to be out. One of them's going to stay, and somebody's going to get drafted, or they're going to sign somebody like a T. Higgins or something. Just seems like there's going to be a major change up this next offseason or in the future.
I can totally see. I can totally see that. That's why this offense and this team in general is, it has a bright future for so many reasons. But from a fantasy standpoint, from a dynasty standpoint, it is all high risk, and who knows on the reward, because there's just too much unknowns right now. But if you're rebuilding and you're looking to take a shot, there's some skilled players there, so it just depends on how it shakes out in the system. Last bit of news to get to: Zach Wilson will be back as the starter for the New York Jets. The Tim Boyle experiment is over. Wilson has done his punishment in the corner, taken his lashes, and my one simple question for you is, do you care?
No.
Yeah, exactly. I also don't care if Zach Wilson is someone on your dynasty team that you are excited about coming back for your playoff push. Then I just say congratulations for being in the playoffs. Yes, that is all we have to say. Let's quickly hear from Underdog, which is a much more favorable underdog story than Zach Wilson, and we will be right back to get into our playoff buys, which apparently I'm reading the show sheet right now. I love taking down the fourth wall Jagger, titled The Electric Boogaloo. The hell does that mean?
Fantasy Sports Corp and Underdog Fantasy have teamed up to start your fantasy season off in the win column with Best Ball. What is Best Ball? It's quite simply the easiest way to win. No team management, no trades, no waivers. It's their biggest contest ever, and it has only gotten bigger. You simply have to sit and win. You don't even have to set your lineup. Always get your best score every week. Just enter a contest, draft your team, and Underdog will do the rest. What could make this even better? How about free money, up to $100 using our exclusive promo code? Go online now and use the promo code TSSDYNASTY to double your deposit up to $100. You tell them Gingerbread sent you. Good girl.
Let's talk some buys for the playoffs, and we're going to start on what was a fun game this weekend in Cincinnati land. Jake Browning at quarterback. Yeah, that was, you know what? That was just a game that was, as a football fan, it was just fun to watch. Because I think my expectations were low on him for obvious reasons. But man, the things I liked about him was his poise, his command of the offense and the field. And then, just his straight up athletic ability. Like, I'm not saying he was, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, or anyone like that out there from an athletic standpoint, but he was very smart. And had clear intent on every single one of his movements in the pocket, and he threw a good ball. And maybe I'm just watered down from watching Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi all year, and I forgot that I'm looking at subpar quarterback thinking it's amazing, because I've been looking at really, really bad quarterback play. But Jake Browning looked damn good. So the question I ask is, do you think where do you think Jake Browning goes from here? Because obviously they got Joe Burrow. So Jake Browning is not going to be a long-term necessarily asset that we're going to start week to week in Dynasty. Is he a backup that you are going to stash anyways on your team in hopes that he goes somewhere else, or even if he stays a backup in Cincy, are you going to stash him anyways? Or is this someone that you're going to look to sell on the moment?
It's kind of like I'll listen to offers and see what comes through. Because playoff time breeds desperation sometimes, especially in dynasty leagues. If you have a wide open trade window, no trade deadlines is what I'm trying to get at with that statement. So yeah, I'll definitely leave it. My line is always open. My DMs are always open when it comes to players. So if you give me a good offer where I'm like, oh man, you want to give me a second for Jake Browning? Sure, let's do it. But I have no problem keeping him on my bench because, like you said, listen, this year there are going to be a lot of teams that are playoff teams that shouldn't be in the playoffs. Yes. And that means that they're going to get high draft picks, and they're not going to get that dream quarterback of Drake May, Caleb Williams, Michael Penix Jr. These guys are going to slip before they're taken, or they're going to be taken before they slip to these guys. So I'm going to go ahead and say that, someone like maybe the Falcons or maybe the Bucks start to think about, oh, you know what? Especially if this guy goes on a run. This Jake Browning guy looks pretty good. And he's like 23. That's a great age, to bring him in and see what he can do. And hey, maybe the Bengals give us a nice discount. Maybe it's only like a 4th or a 3rd rounder or something like that. And kind of like along the lines of what the Matt Schaub back in the day when he was an Atlanta Falcon, kind of go in there and they just ask about it. Hey, what are you doing? You wanna do a trade? Sure. Let's see if we got a face of the franchise type guy that we can get at a cheaper price as far as rookie capital goes. So I'm hoping for that. I would be hopeful for that. The kid showed a lot of moxie out there. He showed great poise in a situation in which, a lot of quarterbacks would have faltered. He showed the ability to use all of his players. I know the stat sheet says that Jamar Chase dominated that game, but everybody got a little piece of the pie there. Yeah. Higgins came back to life. Higgins has been like a big fucking zero for like a long time now. He got involved in that game.
Well, and even more on Higgins notes before we go past that, what was also very kind of uplifting for him was he was able to take that hit across the middle on that last catch he made. He got popped and he stood right up and shook it off and gave the first down time. Like that was like a nice sign. Like, okay, welcome back. Like you're back in it. You're doing fine. So I feel like Higgins could be on the rise here coming up.
Yeah, no, 100%. And it was good to see Cincinnati feel like they're back in it, because you never want to see teams. How many teams do we have now with on their second quarterback?
Oh, it's awful.
It feels like you could fill a division with these guys.
I'm holding all my QB assets at this point, just because it's honestly like outside of like an absolute haul of draft picks, like I'm still not convinced that the guys coming up in this draft are going to be surefire starters. Like I'd rather hold someone that I'm at the NFL level, even if it's just one night of success. I'd rather hold that because I use my eyes to say that, oh, this kid can play football, and I'd rather just keep that asset right now, just because there's so many quarterbacks down.
For sure. I totally agree. Do you think, one quick question for you as Chuck comes in, do you guys think that Jake Browning can be a factor in people's fantasy teams, like on their championship runs? Like say somebody's had a string of bad luck, like I was just talking about, where they had Trevor Lawrence and Anthony Richardson. Do you think that they could be, sitting okay with Jake Browning as their guy going forward?
I don't think it's the end of the world. That's what I'm saying. But I think we still need to be realistic of what his ceiling is. Because because I think they still put a lot on Joe Mixon and Chase Brown in that game as well, which was smart. It was everything from an NFL standpoint, from a football team standpoint, it was the right moves to make. But from a fantasy standpoint, we need to be realistic that his ceiling is probably capped. But I'd be happy with him getting like 16 points from me right now, and I'd take that considering the position and the state of the position across the league. If he's getting, and hell, we'll talk about it later, but that's about what Patrick Mahomes is putting out weekly right now at like his ceiling. So, I mean, I'll take.
How sad a time it is.
But Chuck, welcome in. I sliding in here. Any thoughts on Jake Browning? Both Justin and I we're pretty much both in agreement that we were impressed. We liked what we saw with our eyes of him on the field and the way he moved. And I think we're both in a holding pattern with him.
Yeah, I agree. He's shown an ability to process quickly, and kind of the game doesn't move too fast for him. And what we've seen so far, the first start was a little rough, but he was forced in against the best defense in the league. And a lot of the work he's done, sans that, kind of blown coverage chase ball where the 29th ranked pass defense in the league doesn't have safety help. Like, he's doing it with all of the other guys other than Chase and Higgins. So it's really feels like the floor there is pretty high, and they're doing a good job of making it easy for him. And when you just look at, what's going on, like the graveyard across the league, I mean, I'll take a guy who has Chase, Higgins, Mixon, Boyd any day of the week over probably, hate to say it, like 22 other quarterbacks in the league right now, or not over 22 in the top 22.
Yeah. Well, and just with the way he's also using Tanner Hudson. I mean, Tanner Hudson's been the leading target for the last, I think it was both of his 2 weeks now. So, I mean, Hudson slid in there, and it just gives this whole different versatility to this offense that I'm hoping carries through whenever Burrow comes back and, next season. But I think Browning can fully take advantage of it at this point right now.
Love it.
So let's get into Josh Dobbs, the Cinderella story, who may have turned back into the pumpkin. We'll see. We'll see how you guys feel. Remaining the starter in Minnesota, he's got this rushing floor that definitely keeps him useful. Do you think he can control his turnovers going forward, though? And how do you guys feel about the schedule? Like, do you think the defenses that he's facing will be able to take advantage of those turnovers, or do you think he's going to reel that in? And I believe and actually I didn't get a confirmation. I forgot to check, but I believe Justin Jefferson's back this week. Is that confirmed?
Mm-hmm.
He is.
It's all but it's literally everything but he's suiting up. It's like, if you didn't even know he was injured, you wouldn't be worried. Like, he's practicing, all first team reps, yada yada. Like, everything's good. They just haven't done. It's like on track and all that typical nonsense they have to do.
Sure. No, that's what I thought. Right. So obviously that helps Dobbs here. So are you guys comfortable rolling Dobbs out here in your playoffs? Are you buying him? And how do you feel about his long-term stock?
I'll let you take that one first, Chuck, since you just got in.
I will say I'm probably a little higher on Dobbs in comparison to what I think the actual, as of this moment, point of view is on him. Chicago, just nasty front seven these last few weeks since the Montez Sweat trade, and the Broncos, just, one of the more opportunistic defenses in the league over their run as well. I think it was just kind of one of those, little bit of tapes out and a really, a couple tough matchups. As far as what he has coming ahead of him, I mean, give me the Raiders, the Jaguars, and then the Lions secondary, like any day of the week for this upcoming stretch run. If he's able to, get a little bit more mobile, you get Justin Jefferson back. I mean, Justin Jefferson was the number one asset in fantasy until he went down, ahead of anybody else going right now, even Tyreek. So you bring him back and he's able to be in anything meaningful. I feel pretty good because, I mean, I don't know about you two, but Dobbs' approval rating is pretty about what feels like his floor. It feels like a buy window for a guy who probably will be a starter in the league next year, or at least he will be signed in the offseason to be given a chance to compete for the starting job.
It makes perfect sense that he'll be around somewhere next year. I mean, like we keep saying, with the state of quarterbacks across the league with all the injuries we've had right now, he's definitely one of the top 32 guys who are physically playing at the moment.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I mean, if he's not at Wallops, he's going to be in the NFL. I mean, if he's not flying a spaceship, he's definitely be flying footballs across the field. And actually, like I said, like if you got an open trade window, like Chuck was saying, go trade for this guy. Because if he just gets you to your championship and you win a title, it's going to be worth the third rounder or so that you sent away for him, guaranteed.
Yeah, that rushing floor is pretty premium. He was going on when you look at his stats, you're like, Jesus, he had 6 straight games with a rushing touchdown. Like, that's crazy. And then that spans 2 different teams, which is just crazy. But he should have plenty of opportunity. He's going up against some pretty soft defenses in the upcoming weeks.
Yeah, and I'm actually looking at in our Dynasty League. I'm looking at my league right now because I just put Jefferson back into my lineup. Man, if I just had a quarterback, I could have made a run at this. I could have turned this around this year. But man, I'm rolling Tommy DeVito out there with my starting quarterback.
Tommy slings, man. Tommy slings the ball. Let it rip.
When everybody else gets hurt, you gotta do what you gotta do. All right, so Josh Dobbs, we're liking him. We're gonna keep buying him. We're rolling him out there. We kind of touched on the Green Bay situation earlier and news and nonsense. And I feel like I'm gonna butcher this name. Dontavian Wicks, is that right? Dontavian. Okay, yep. Dontavian Wicks.
Got it.
Dontavian Wicks in this offense, obviously with Christian Watson looking to be missing some significant time here because hamstrings are hamstrings, and we know how unpredictable they are. Wicks should get some more playing time here. My problem with Wicks is that we can't even get a consistency out of Reed and Dobbs at the moment. And Luke Musgrave is still in the picture and is I'm not convinced this offense is strong enough to withstand that many weapons. I feel like it's one of those one guy's going to go off and we just don't know which one every week. I'm not personally willing to take that risk. Now, do I like the prospect of Wicks long term? As you alluded to earlier, Justin, you feel like probably two of these receivers may not make it long term here in Green Bay. A signing and one of them stays. If something like that happens, I could see a situation where Wicks does end up being like the number 3 wide receiver on this team, and an injury can launch him right into being relative. But man, this is huge risk. I'm not willing to take it. Are you, Justin?
Dontavian Wicks is somebody who I've talked about past 2 weeks on waiver wires, and it's because you kind of see the little bit of a trend where he's starting to get 4 or 5 targets a game. But what I've started to see pattern wise is that he's more or less kind of like Green Bay's version of Josh Reynolds. Like, they're not going to give him any of the special touches, the red zone touches. They're not going to him when they're inside the 20. They're going to him in between the 20s. So unless this guy makes something special out of his touches, he's not really going to do too much for you fantasy-wise. That being said, though, if you're really in a pinch and you're coming down to a Devontae Parker or Dontavian Wicks, at least you'll know Dontavian Wicks will give you 9 to 10 points. And so
at least there's a chance of a touchdown in that offense.
That is information for you to know. Devontae Parker might give you 20 points, but more likely he's going to give you like 0.5. So, consistency is key.
Well, Wicks has been consistently getting, averaging 4 targets a game, 3 catches, right around that 40-yard, 50-yard mark. So the touchdowns aren't there. He doesn't have a touchdown, but the looks are there. It really is just about, to me, how high you think the ceiling is for this offense. Where are you on Wicks, Chuck?
This is really interesting because it's like this is a team that was peaking at the right time, and we feel they're losing a guy that we all pretty much agree feels like, whether you feel like he's a stud or not, he's definitely their best weapon. So now it comes down to, like, is this a train that gets derailed when they lose somebody like that? Or is this the offense with Jordan Love coming alive? Because, all the metrics for Wicks are like really good. He's top 10 in like targets per route run, yards per route run. Like you said, the touchdowns aren't really there, but like, is this an opportunity for him to step up? So if you believe in his talent, it does feel like a nice little opportunity to maybe jump on board before a breakout happens. But like you guys said, just the distribution on this offense is so, you brought up Josh Reynolds and the Lions. Like, it feels very much like that, right? Like, only they just don't have an Amon-Ra. So otherwise, how much you can count on something like this, I would temper expectations, but it's definitely, you really can't say anything negative about him or the situation. It just depends on how optimistic you want to go with it.
Yeah. The key is going to come down to Jordan Love and what he gets out of these guys, which is he's on an upswing. So we'll just wait and see there, I guess. Let's move right along here to we once again, we touched on the Patriots situation earlier with Stevenson going down, Elliott going to be sliding in here. Hell, maybe this is just me as a Patriots fan just hoping for something, anything to cheer for to make football Sundays now, manageable. But I'm all in for going with Elliott here. I've watched enough of him. I don't know how much of you guys have seen of the Patriots games because they've obviously not exactly great viewing right now. But if you just watch Elliott run right now, he looks good. Like he's not peak Elliott, what we used to see in Dallas, but he's running hard. He's making cuts. He looks good. He's the only thing they got going for him now for that team. So I don't see how he doesn't get 20-plus touches a game at this point down the stretch here. I 100% think Ezekiel Elliott is a guy that if he's on your team for the playoffs, he's got the floor of a flex and the ceiling of a mid-range RB2 for you. Rhamondre is done for the season, or at least for the fantasy season. So, Chuck, are you in on Elliott as well? Are you buying him?
Yeah, I would say this is an excellent microcosm of where we are in the season, is to where, like you said, he doesn't look bad. He looks capable and he looks pretty comfortable in the offense. And I mean, God, they can try the best they can to mix in anybody else that they want, but he's the only weapon that they have right now with, Douglas is out, Booty is out. I mean, they're just down to they literally don't have a choice. And the problem with the Patriots has always been, you never really know what they're going to do. They mix in different fronts and formations and get different people involved. No, you got no fucking choice. All right.
Yeah.
Got this one guy.
They're not doing any of that.
Yeah. And he was already in that mix of anywhere between 11 to 16 attempts or targets combined per game already with Rhamondre in the mix. Not every game, but he had those games. You combine that in with some pretty, and at the end of this kid, he gets the Steelers, which we have coming up, which, is not an amazing defense, but, it's going to be a low-scoring game. Then they're going to grind it out. Chiefs, Broncos, Bills, Jets. So, I mean, it's hard to make a sell for or a case for why this is a strong buy. I would just feel very strongly about him as a plug-and-play if you have him on your roster.
Exactly. Yeah. If I have him on my team already, I'm feeling good about that. So yeah, Justin, how are you on Elliott?
Oh, I am putting him in my flex position for the next 3 weeks because I think that's probably what he's got in the tank is the next 3 weeks. I look at this. So I was at the Raider game and he looked phenomenal. He broke off what looked like 60-yard run and he took off with ease. But they called it back because it was a penalty. I think it was a holding penalty.
Yeah, I do remember that.
And I remember because we were on that we were in the end zone seats for that. And I was just like, God damn, Zeke looks good. And each week he continues to look really good. And they're getting him the Rhamondre treatment. He's catching passes out of the backfield. So I think that you can definitely count on him getting at least 15 points a week for the next 3 weeks. But like I said, he's got some issues. He's older. I would imagine he's maybe got about, I'm going to say 3, if you're lucky, 4 weeks of 20 touches before he totally hits this brick wall of, maybe even under 3 yards a carry.
Well, and it's for this week specifically too. As we know, Thursday night games are bumps for running back. So between Elliott, between Warren, between Harris, this is, and just given what both of the states of both these offenses, this is going to be just handing the ball off for both teams all night long. It feels like with Kenny Pickett out for, and that's not on here, but we should quickly probably touch on Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett going down does feel like it's going to be a bit of a blow to dynasty managers. But honestly, with the way this season has turned for Kenny Pickett, did the blow already happen? Did his stock already drop, fall enough to where this injury was just more putting the poor guy out of his misery?
No, that's the funniest thing about this whole season is it's every single situation like this is like the first part of the Dumb and Dumber line where he's like, just when I thought you couldn't get any dumber, only the redeem yourself part never comes. That's what every single one of these quarterback injuries and teams and offenses just fumbling the bag left and right feel like. I mean, I literally tweeted today, like kind of questioning whether or not Mike Tomlin really is a good coach or not, because this is a team that has just refused to enter into the modern age of football at the only position that they need to do it in, at the quarterback. They have had everything else you need for the better part of 12 years now, and they have just refused to capitalize on the opportunities that have been presented to them. I do not want to watch Mitch Trubisky, and I do not want to watch him on Thursday night. Everybody has forgotten how bad this guy really is. He is the bottom tier. He is bottom tier quarterback in the league, and he brings little to no excitement. I'm sad for everybody involved.
Tomorrow night's game is going to be brutal. I'm going to watch every snap as a Patriots fan, but it's not going to be a fun one.
You know, this game literally needs a little spark to it. So I think they should do a good old fashioned cage match with a stipulation of loser gets fired that night.
Ooh,
for Tom and Belichick.
They will welcome. They both would welcome it at this point. Welcome death.
Yeah.
The one of the no rules one, all weapons allowed kind of thing.
Exactly. just throw it out there, see if the ratings go up, just to see the last game.
Ratings would go up. Ratings would definitely go. You know what I want to see? I want to see how Nickelodeon animates that. And so let back go. They've been doing that animation for that stream, so I want to see that. It'll be like watching Celebrity Deathmatch back in the day all over again.
Oh, shout out Celebrity Deathmatch! Bring it on.
Oh yes, but that's one more side note there on Ezekiel Elliott, a +205 for an anytime touchdown score tomorrow night. Which hell, if you're gonna put a bet on anybody to score a touchdown tomorrow night, I feel like he's probably the best bet. So +205. Might be worth throwing a few bucks on to just make a couple more. But we're going to take a quick break from Jazz Casino, and we're going to get into some sells coming up for your playoff run.
Jazz, Sportsbook, Casino, and Racebook, the world's best resource for all-purpose online wagering. For over 20 years, Jazz has provided the best and quickest payouts in sports and entertainment wagers. Live sports betting, covering all the major sports leagues, and even into the new and exciting world of esports. Down the stretch you'll come, with Jazz's online horse wagering. Get paid when you play with Jazz's fun and exciting online casino games. Go online now and use the promo code TSS for our new members deals. Jazz Sportsbook, Casino, and Racebook, the world's best resource for online wagering.
All right, Jazz Casino, thank you. Let's get into some sells here. And this is going to be the third segment that we mentioned Christian Watson's name. But, I mean, he's someone that needs to be talked about because he's teetering on that line of what you do with him and whether we should like him or not. Obviously, this injury comes into play. But Christian Watson as a sell, obviously for the playoff run for this season, he's going to be useless, I feel like. So that's an easy answer. But I think long term too. Here's the thing. It's so tough to gauge with Christian Watson because I believe in the talent he has. I believe in the way I see him run routes. I believe in the way I see him move on the football field. That talent's there. I'm starting to doubt Green Bay's ever going to use him correctly though, and that's where I fall. I feel like Christian Watson needs to be on a different team. Justin, do you feel the same about Christian Watson, or do you are you a bit more down on him no matter what happens?
I think he needs a new strength and conditioning coach because he seems to always have this hamstring issue flare up. Like he's got more hammy issues than Julio Jones did post 30 years old. And he doesn't handle it nearly as well. He doesn't just say, I'm going to take off for the rest of the game and then I'm going to show up the next game and dominate ball out again. He takes off like 3 or 4 weeks and it kind of hurts your fantasy season. But, you know, I completely agree with you. The talent is absolutely there. The talent is, sky high. He's fast as Roadrunner, and he's as big as, DK Metcalf. I don't know.
I think that Foghorn Leghorn. Foghorn Leghorn and keep it animated or something. Okay.
Yeah. What was the red hair guy that would always be chasing Bugs Bunny. That guy was ginormous. I can't remember what his name was. Yeah. that guy's about as big as Kyler Murray.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Oh God.
But no, man. I mean, it's hard because it's like, do you sell him for? Does everybody else know what we know? So when you're selling somebody, are they gonna be saying the same thing? Like, nah, I'm not gonna pay that first round premium price for him. Or are they going to be on board with it? Is it, in other words, what I'm saying, is it better to buy him than to sell him? Because is the value going to be more in, hey, I can get a good receiver at a cheaper price and hopefully he pulls through, rather than, hey, I'm going to sell this guy for a premium? Like, what's the conversation we're really able to have here?
Yeah, I don't mind the idea of buying him, because it's a high risk, high reward buy. Because Watson, I do think Watson has the potential for that ceiling, so I don't mind buying him. Sorry to interrupt you, Chuck. Go ahead.
No, absolutely. That was very well said, because I think that's a big part of this, because we're debating what his value is, right, and what you can get for him. I like to flip these kind of guys because I don't think they're ever going to be 9, 10 target and plus target earners in their offense. They're like, he's like the best version of Gabe Davis. And like, that's not even a knock on Gabe Davis, because those guys have like week winning standalone value. It's just more like, what's their ceiling going to be? And the Miles Austin comparison I thought was apt, because like Miles Austin was that guy, and he was awesome for you when he was awesome's the wrong word. He was capable of putting up big games any week when he was healthy, but he was just really never that high target earner, even in a very pass happy attack. So if you can get these guys, get picks back, and maybe even bring in, like, this is going to sound, like a trade down, but like a Michael Pittman, somebody who is pulling in those like 10, 11, 12 target games week to week to week. Like, I like those kind of flips, and just what they can be for a steady roster construction.
Yeah, that's the thing. Miles Austin wasn't a pass-happy offense, and Green Bay will never be that. Green Bay's never going to be throwing the ball over the field. Just in the short term here, even between A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones, they're committed to that backfield, and I don't see. I just see that being their style. So, Christian Watson, I totally agree that is something to keep an eye on. Let's get to the topic that I'm sure will cause some debate amongst the masses here. But Patrick Mahomes.
Ooh.
Is it time to sell Patrick Mahomes? Is he in the way? I think the way Jagger put it here, it makes a lot of sense. Is he worth more in real life than fantasy? And I think the question is, I think we're there. I think it is. Here's the fact of the matter is, I was looking at this earlier, and let me pull this up. 12 games so far. Obviously, he only has 5 that are over 20 points. Only one of those over 30. Now, we're used to seeing Patrick Mahomes like being pretty regularly averaging like 22, 24 fantasy points. For him to be kind of hanging out in that mid-teen range, and then having the 1 week against who was this against? Was that the Chargers with only 7 points? That's pretty brutal for what his value is still demanding. It might be time to sell Patrick Mahomes, because it feels like we're headed towards almost like a complete QB reset of the market here.
This I just have to it's not that I have to shut it down, but I just can't entertain the notion, because of how much volatility even like Hall of Fame quarterbacks have year to year. And not to say that they have shit years, but a top 3 year versus a top 12 year, which is what Mahomes is having right now ish, barely. I don't even think, right? What is he? He's the QB 8, but I mean, the amount of QB 1 weeks he's had has been less than he's not had. So I think this is like a blip in what like will be his career. Like, they are going to rectify the situation, and they're not going to put him through this shit again, because he was unbelievable last year with slightly marginally better weapons. They just the tweaks to this offense are so easy, and I just trust the infrastructure so much that I just don't know. Obviously, you'd get a king's ransom, I imagine, but is this the worst time to sell Patrick Mahomes? Like, what if you had sold him now versus just even if you sold him 6 weeks ago after that last Chargers games where he used to put up 43 points? I mean, like, even the drop in value, perceived value now, might just, we'll just wait till that cycle comes back around because it's coming.
Now, I know a few weeks ago we had the question asked. It might have been even longer than that. I forget what everyone's answer was, but Mahomes for Stroud right now. If that was a trade, are you going to stick with Mahomes, or would you be taking the Stroud side? Obviously, long term, I like Stroud is a super high prospect here. But who the hell just deleted the entire fucking show sheet? But Stroud. Fourth walls don't. I said it earlier. Yeah. Fourth walls do not exist to me.
We're normal people, just like you guys.
Yes. But CJ Stroud for Patrick Mahomes right now. Like, Justin, which side are you taking of that right now? Like, do you feel like Mahomes is going to stay at his elite level? When I say elite, I mean, like Chuck said, like a top 3 quarterback for the foreseeable future.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is one of the rare moments where you're catch on air. I actually agree with Chuck. I tend to try and play devil's advocate with him just because I like to have the banter back and forth. But I totally agree with Chuck on this one. I mean, I think it's a gross, arrogant move that Andy Reid and company have played, saying that, hey, we don't need Tyreek Hill. Hey, we're going to wait till Travis Kelce to literally the wheels fall off to actually get Patrick Mahomes some help. They've tried to use all of these, just lackluster receiving options that were thrown away by other teams. And they tried to just say, oh, Pat will just Salt Bay it with his magic and these guys will be fantastic. So I think that this season's kind of probably going to be an eye opener for them. And they're probably going to say, you know what, we hit on Racey Rice, but he's probably no better than a 2 going forward. We need to go find our 1. I'm just afraid they're going to literally look at somebody like a T. Higgins and his freaking stuff is going to go through the goddamn roof. And I don't have enough of him right now. Segue for you, buddy.
Nice. Bingo. That's bingo. I would say another kind of small wrinkle to this year that I think is a little bit different is that Isaiah Pacheco already has more rushing touchdowns through 13 games than he did all of last year. Like, they kind of have – it's not really translating to the dominance that you would want to see or expect from like a premier offense, but it is just like another little, you can kind of point the finger at a bunch of small things as opposed to like one big he's losing it or the offense is losing design or anything like that. Like, it's just everything we've said, I think, contributes to a situation that can be completely rectified going into 2020.
It's been kind of like a nice Band-Aid for this offense because like they're still producing in a way, like you said, but it's just like we're like thinking about it and you're just like you just said, it's more or less coming from the offense actually being balanced and that's unusual because this offense is usually so pass happy, at least through the years. So having Isaiah Pacheco there to actually like mitigate and make it a little bit more of a conservative offense, it's balanced it. And these games that they're winning are not blowout games, they're actually close games, but they're eating more of the clock rather than just driving down the field, scoring, and then being like, hey, here's the ball. You try and score on us now. And, you didn't score on us. We're going to take the ball and just go score on you. Like, they're actually just eating up the clock like a normal team would.
Yeah, absolutely. They're doing like, we'll look back on the season and we'll be like, wow, they really thought they could rely heavily on MBS Tony and Sky Moore. Like, it's going to be an all-time joke for like the rest of us going forward. Like, it's just not what you want. Between that and David Carr said this week, it was a big week for We Can Do This, the We Can Do This crowd.
Well, they got the speed between Rice and between Pacheco. They got the speed on that offense. They obviously got the strength and the power on Kelce. If they do get themselves a big-bodied, strong receiver, just to get – I mean, not that Kelce has a problem getting open as it is, but, God, you give another option out there that safeties need to think about. This offense is going to be exactly what we've seen out of Miami this year, just speed and power. But also balance, like you said. Quickly, you mentioned T. Higgins. Let's get into T. Higgins because, So I was down on T. Higgins coming into the year. Not necessarily down. I still thought he'd be good, but I remember I placed him at the back of my I think I had him at like 25 or 27 in my wide receiver rankings. I remember taking flack for that. I'm not going to victory lap here because it's outside factors, whatever. But I only bring that up because I think I'm higher on T. Higgins now than I was at the beginning of the year, because I think I see his value in the offense without him there. But also, I think his value of what you can get him for right now is fantastic. I think it's a perfect buy window. And Justin, you alluded to, so I'll let you run with the T. Higgins rebuilder buy window right now.
Yeah. So I was actually one of the few guys that was right there with you. I remember I put out a tweet that was like straight up like T. Higgins is one of the worst wide receiver 2 options. It's getting treated like a wide receiver 1 option because he gets drafted that way. He gets drafted like he's a 1B rather than a 2, and he's been a pretty shitty 2 most of the year. But why I would be in on him and why I want to go buy him is the argument I just gave.
Yeah.
There's a lot of teams, Houston's going to be looking for an alpha. Kansas City's going to be looking for an alpha. There's plenty of other teams I'm not even thinking of right now that are going to be looking for an alpha. And T. Higgins is right there saying, hey, I want to be on a different team because Ja'Marr Chase takes up all my targets.
Yep.
Go get him. He's super talented. He's athletic. He's everything you want. He kind of feels like Stephon Diggs without the production at this point. The year before he got traded to Buffalo. And I feel like he goes to a good team like a Houston or a Kansas City, and we're gonna start seeing those top 12 years coming in like it's just every single year. It's going to be a routine. We're going to start drafting T. Higgins at an appropriate spot because his value is going to be there. I love the idea of buying him. I hope my opponents don't see this and start saying, hey, I want to get a first and more for him. But I will definitely be sending out a ton of offers this offseason. And if I have an open window right now, I might go send one right now to get T. Higgins.
Honestly, yeah. No, I could literally not agree more with everything you just said, which is fucking annoying because I, like you, want to pull the other side too. I mean, like he's such a brand name for a lot of different reasons, not just from his production, but like, he's been involved in a few different like funny fantasy stories, whether it's like an injury not being reported or just maybe some like health struggles, being the second banana to Ja'Marr Chase. He's only 24 years old. And he is just an excellent premier wide receiver. He's not a 1A. He's probably a 1B, but, a 1B on an offense where he is the alpha, like he is going to command close to those, Diggs, DJ Moore, like new addition type of targets. And that if he were to still go somewhere and maybe still be a 1B, whether it's like the Jets or the Bills or somewhere like that, at the very least, you can still get the baseline production of what he's been getting, which is still a very good top 12 to top 15 wide receiver. So there's really no downside into buying into him because he is going to be a good, bad, or mediocre quarterback's best friend anywhere that he goes. And there's a lot of teams that are going to be in the wide receiver arms race in the offseason. Like anywhere that people have asked to trade for Mike Evans is going to be a destination that people are that T. Higgins is also a possibility for. So there's just it's so hard to find anything wrong with buying him.
Yeah, and the odds are, if you want to call it odds, the odds are just there. There's enough good teams that are going to be looking for his type of wide receiver, and he is going to be the top option on the market as well. Mm-hmm. So it's almost a guarantee that he's gonna, not again, but like the odds are very good that he's gonna land in a favorable situation, unless he lands on my New England Patriots. But that's going to do it.
What would you? I'll say this one real quick.
Don't wish that evil on me, Ricky Bobby.
gut reaction to him going to the Cardinals.
I like it. Kyler Murray, I like it.
I think it's so. I think it's it's like it's clear 1A for him. I think it creates an interesting almost. We don't have time to get into it now, but I think Hollywood Brown becomes interesting after that because I think it settles him into a role, which I think he's more of a role type of receiver. So I think that changes that offense a lot. So, but that could be a good topic for another day. Landing spots for T. Higgins, we could do a whole show on it. But that will do it for us. Everybody, look forward to your Thursday night game tomorrow night. Make sure you're comfy and ready to, in a safe way, ready to fall asleep on the couch. I'm Andrew LeDuc at Real Mr. Mallard, joined as always by Justin Herrera at Semtex Max 93, and then Chuck Bass FF, host of This Guy Sucks. And it's another fantasy show, right? It's just another.
Just love that. Right. That's the way you said that is exactly what we were going for.
Exactly. That's what I figured.
Nice.
Everyone have a good night. We will see you next week, 9:30 every Wednesday. Later.
Peace.